Hey there everyone, Bill from Field of Geeks here. So I finally got a chance to go see Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, and I know I'm about a month behind on this one, but in my defense, work has been hell lately. Was it worth the wait? Let's find out as we discuss 5 good things and 5 bad things about this movie. And before we get too far into it, spoilers ahead, so, you've been warned. Let's start with the good. So number 1, there's lots of Spidey references. So yeah, this movie was totally worth the wait. The whole movie feels like a love letter to lifelong fans of Spider-Man, and there are a ton of references, not just to the comics, but to the live-action films, the animated series, video games, things like that. Spidey has been around forever, and this movie gives you a ton of cool Easter eggs. So first let's talk about Donald Glover's cameo as a live-action Prowler, something I've been dying to see ever since Spider-Man Homecoming. It's not a big part, and he's basically sitting in a prison cell for the whole thing, but it was still cool. And yes, I do mean live action. Every character in the film is presented in the way that they appeared in their respective mediums. So, Insomniac's Spider-Man looks pulled straight from the video game. Spectacular Spider-Man is rendered in the same animation style as the show. You get the idea. It was really cool to have them show off the different characters that way in this movie. I also loved the little editor's notes we got on screen, just like in the comics, where they, give you a little translation or they reference another comic book or whatever, kind of like those little things they used to do back in the day. I don't know if they still do them because I haven't read a comic book in years, but it's such a cool little feature added to the film. Number 2, great character growth. The movie takes place a few months after the first one, so it's cool to see how everyone has kind of grown and changed. Miles is a bit more mature and better able to kind of stand on his own this time around, which was really great to see. Gwen is dealing with a lot of the loss she's felt and has much more depth to her character than just, Spider-Man but a girl. Not to say she didn't have depth in the first one, but it's a great way to showcase her growth overall. Peter B. Parker makes a return as well, and he seems, less broody and pessimistic this time around. We don't get much of him, but what we do get is pretty amazing. The introduction of Mayday Parker is a cute little addition to the film as well, and it's good to see that Peter B. has gotten his life back on track. So for number 3, Spider-Man 2099. I've always loved the character of Miguel O'Hara, so I'm glad he was included this time around. He showed up briefly in the first one at the end of the credits, a little teaser, but he has a much more prominent role in this one. Oscar Isaac gives a terrific performance and, as always, really drives it home and, really kind of expresses the weight that Miguel has on his shoulders. There were some things I didn't quite like about Miguel's portrayal, and I'll get to that in a moment, but overall I was so glad they included him in such a big way. Number 4, the Spot is a great villain. I don't care what anyone says, I know he's a D-lister from the comics, but the way he's introduced and his motivations in the movie are really easy to get behind. He ticks all the boxes of the, you made me what I am villain. He's basically that guy that Miles smokes with a bagel in the first movie, which was probably one of my favorite moments from that film. He starts off pretty silly, but by the end, I was really glad that they introduced him and they included him in this movie. He even travels to a few different Spider-Verses on his own, which was really cool to see. He visits Mrs. Chen from the Venom series. He visits the Lego world, which, fun fact on that, was animated by a 14-year-old kid. And the producers of this film saw his work, and they were like, yes, we want you, so they let him run with it, and that was super cool. And of course, my favorite world that he visits is the world of Spider-Man India. Our last point on the good side is Spider-Punk, aka Hobie Brown. And the award for the biggest smartass of the movie goes to Hobie, who I was really excited to see in this film. He is perfectly portrayed as a stereotypical punk rocker in a way that would make the Sex Pistols proud. You have to listen carefully for all his little jabs, but by far, he's one of the coolest additions to the cast. I definitely want to see more from Spider-Punk. That was the good, let's get into the bad. And point number 1, everyone just kind of sucks. Not Miles, though. Miles, you're good. Keep doing what you're doing. What I mean by this is that everyone is just kind of a huge dick to Miles just because Miguel says so. Okay, maybe that's not totally fair, but even Peter B and Gwen are kind of standoffish and sort of cold when it comes to dealing with Miles, and I know it's to protect him, but it's kind of like, how am I supposed to root for you guys when all you do is treat Miles like crap? I sort of get it, but even Miguel goes like super dark at one point, basically telling Miles that he was never meant to exist and that his existence is pointless and whatever. I guess it'd be a boring movie if they all came together and sang Kumbaya or whatever, but still, leave Miles alone, man. What the hell? Even his parents can be a bit insufferable at times, but it's all in the name of protecting him or something like that. I don't really know. Anyway, point number 2. Ben Reilly is a joke. Okay, it's kind of funny to see him all self-loathing and broody, and Andy Samberg plays it up spectacularly in this movie, but for one of my favorite Spider characters to be treated like that edgy emo kid who ate his lunch in the boys' bathroom is just kind of whatever. Maybe tone it down a notch for the sequel. I don't know. Speaking of the sequel, number 3, waiting a year for part 2. March 29th, 2024. That's when part 2 of this movie is coming out, which seems like an eternity. Granted, this film was supposed to come out way sooner than it did, so maybe a year wait isn't so bad. I mean, this one was close to 2.5 hours, and it went by way too fast. And I mean that in a good way, so, maybe I'm just nitpicking here, but anyway. Point number 4, I didn't have a pause button. Okay, so this really isn't the film's fault, but there were so many things going on in the background that I wish I could have caught them all in one viewing, and I'm sure that's, impossible to do, but whatever. I'm sure someone with a lot of time on their hands will do one of those "here's everything you missed" videos on YouTube, but I feel like I could watch this movie 5 times in a row and catch something different each time, which, don't get me wrong, is something I loved about this movie. For now, I'll just have to wait for the home media release so I can dissect this film frame by frame, and that brings me to my final point. Number 5, lack of returning characters. Okay, so I understand that you don't want to blow your whole load in one 2.5 hour movie, but I was really looking forward to see Spider-Man Noir again. They'll be back for the sequel, but still, this is more of a point that my daughter and I kind of came to because really we couldn't for the life of us think of a 5th thing that was wrong with this movie. But I digress. I think she just wanted to see Spider-Ham, which is her favorite. But we do get Penny Parker very briefly in a brand new mech suit, which made my inner weeb do a little happy dance. But it's so quick that if you took a mid-movie bathroom break, you'd probably miss it. So what are my final thoughts on this movie? Well, overall I can't say enough good about this movie, and even the points that I thought were kind of meh were more just nitpicks than anything. I really struggle to give this one a rating since I gave Super Mario Bros. A 5 out of 5, but screw it. This one gets 5 out of 5 stars too. This movie kicks all kinds of multiversal butt. Keep up the good work, guys, and maybe put some of that effort into Craven because Morbius was absolute dog shit. Thank you, and goodbye.